See what it says? It says program. So when it says program, you need to hold it totally steady.
I'm sorry? Two more? Okay. I got these right here. Did I get your group here? I got bookmarks for the students. Oh, you're the teacher?
Right here.
Okay, there you go. And I think I missed one more. Which one? Standing up right there in the middle? Okay. And then is that it or her too? Okay. I have bookmarks for your students. Thanks for having me.
Yay.
Bookmarks for your students. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm ready, yeah. Okay. Okay, so we're going to get started here. So just a real quick announcement. I don't have a microphone, so you're going to have to just keep a little bit quieter than normal so that the people in the back can hear my voice. I'd like to thank everybody for welcoming me here today. I'm honored to be here. My name is Scott Sussman. I'm the author of these books you see up here. I'm also the author and illustrator of Silly the Seed, Weird the Beard, and Lurky the Hand Turkey. I'm here today to talk to you about why I love reading and writing and to explain how those activities can help you to be happier, healthier, and more successful in whatever you choose to do. Now, there are many reasons why I love to read. One of those reasons is because words are fun, and this is especially true when we put them together to form tongue twisters. You've all heard tongue twisters, right? Yeah. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? A woodchuck would chuck all the wood he could chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood. Well, here's a tongue twister for you, and it's also a question, so listen carefully and see if you can figure out the answer. Are you ready? If one doctor doctors another doctor, does the doctor who doctors the doctor doctor the doctor the way the doctor who's doctoring doctors, or the doctor doctor the way the doctor who doctors doctors? It's pretty clear if you think about it. Obviously, the doctoring doctor doctors the doctor the way the doctoring doctor wants to doctor the doctor, not the way the doctor wants to be doctored. Now, my favorite tongue twister is more fun the faster it's said, and it goes like this. Betty bought some butter, but she said this butter's bitter. If I put it in my batter, it'll make my batter bitter. Bitter, bitter, better, butter will make my batter better. So Betty bought some butter, made her bitter, batter, better. So, words can be fun. This is one reason why I love to read. Another reason why I love to read is because words can be funny. Words make me laugh, and I love to laugh. Just think of the funniest joke you ever heard. Why do fish live in salt water? Because pepper makes them sneeze. Why did the boy eat his homework? Because the teacher said it was a piece of cake. Where does a duck go when he feels sick? To the doctor. Where does a rabbit go when she feels sick? To the hospital. Here's an easy one for you. Here's an easy one. How many legs does an ant have? The correct answer is 2, same as an uncle. Whatever your favorite joke, you laughed when you heard it, right? Now, we all know that we eat with our mouths, correct? But what if, instead of our mouths, we had to eat with our feet? Can you imagine that? You would have to take off your shoes and socks before biting into a banana. What about eating spaghetti? How hard would it be to get the fork all the way down there to your foot? What if your toes were on your nose? And everywhere you went, you had to walk around on your face. What if your eyes were under your armpits? So, words can also be funny. Words can also be funny when we change what they mean. For example, what if instead of a word like president, we said pinky toe? George Washington was the first pinky toe of the United States. Yeah, I think Abraham Lincoln was a great pinky toe. What if instead of a word like vegetables, we said cooties? Can you imagine your mom or dad saying, no dessert for you till you finish your cooties, and you say, no problem, I got my cootie spray. What if instead of a word like sun, we said sneeze? On a bright, sneezy day, you'd put on your sneeze glasses. The weekend would be Saturday and sneeze day. Whenever you went to the beach, you'd put on sneeze tan lotion. After all, you don't want to get a sneeze burn. So what is funny? What are we laughing at? Words, because words can be fun, words can be funny, and these are just two of the many, many reasons why I love to read. Now, I'd like to read to you something that I wrote. I'm going to share my first book, Silly the Seed. I also illustrated this. I mentioned that. I'm definitely not bragging about having illustrated this book. You see, these are very simple illustrations, but I am more of an author. I am usually involved only with the words of a story, and illustrations, even as simple as the one you see right here, were very difficult for me to do. Now, you may be surprised to hear that. You're looking at this drawing thinking, gosh, I could do that in a minute or two, and I'm sure you could, probably better than I've done. But this is a perfect example to show you that you too can write a story, illustrate it if necessary, and then one day you may be up here sharing your book with a group of people. I did it. You absolutely can too. This is the story of Silly the Seed. His parents named him Silly because he's silly indeed. This is his silly face. Silly was happy, yes, that was true. Silly's a special seed, and that much he knew. So, with a smile on his face, Silly went on his way and walked along thinking about the wonderful day. There's the silly face again. Just then Silly saw, under a rock in the park, a wiggly worm caught in the dark. Silly went to help. He knew what to do. He lifted the rock and let the sun shine through. The worm looked at Silly as if to say, thanks for the help. Then he wiggled away. So, with a smile on his face, Silly went on his way and walked along thinking about the wonderful day. He loves to do the silly face. Then Silly saw in the trunk of a tree a benuga bug stuck by a knee. Silly went to the tree to help the bug and unstuck his knee with a twist and a tug. The bug looked at Silly as if to say, gee, thanks a lot. Then he hopped away. So, with a smile on his face, Silly went on his way and walked along thinking about the wonderful day. He's so silly. But then Silly fell in a hole in the ground and waited there hoping soon to be found. That's when Silly saw in a part of the sky a lone cloud watching with a close watching eye. The cloud looked at Silly as if to say, you are a special seed. Then it turned gray. In the flash of a smile and the wink of an eye, the cloud rained on Silly and left him less dry. With a kick and a push, and under an hour, Silly became a beautiful flower. Yesterday somebody said a train. With a smile on his face, as Silly already knew, he is a special seed, like you and me too. What a silly face. Now, thank you. Now, whenever you read a book, whatever it is, hopefully you learn something from it. And I can tell you as a writer, I certainly hope you enjoy reading my stories, but I especially hope you learn from them too, something that makes you happier, that makes your life better, because you can never love and appreciate life enough. Reading Silly the Seed, we see at the beginning that Silly believes he's special, and then at the end, after he becomes a flower, he knows he's special. Well, that's it. That's the key, and that's what I'd like all of you to remember. There's something special about everybody in this room, and I mean everybody. If you look around, you won't see anybody who looks exactly like you, or who dresses exactly like you, or who thinks exactly like you. That's because you are unique. You are special. But here's the important thing. You have to discover and embrace that special seed in you. You have to water it and give it sunlight and allow that specialness to sprout as you grow up to be a beautiful you. You're all young. You have your whole lives ahead of you. So find something that you love to do and then pursue it with your heart. Now, I talked about why I love to read. I also love to write. Writing for me is the ultimate freedom. Anything's possible when you write. Anything goes. Tables can walk and talk. French fries can refuse to be eaten. Your socks can complain that your feet stink. Now, if I wanted to put on my super cape and fly out of here or walk through that wall or turn invisible, I can't. But when I pick up a pen and a piece of paper, I can. Your imagination is a fountain of endless ideas, possibilities, and creativity. So why read? Why write? Because you'd be crazy not to. Now, one of the most common questions I'm asked is where my ideas come from. This is something I could talk about for ages because there are so many ways to be inspired. But for the sake of time, I'll just discuss a couple that I think you might find interesting. And the first is to ask yourselves, what would happen if? For example, what would happen if all cars were made of cheese? Can you imagine a car driving down the street chased by mice? Will the car reach its destination before the mice eat the engine? That's an idea for a story. That's something you could write about. What would happen if there was an elevator shaft right here in the middle of the room, and we saw that it went through the roof into the sky beyond the clouds, and we look up and we see the elevator coming down to the 4th floor, the 3rd, the 2nd, the 1st, the doors open, and a clown leaps out doing somersaults and cartwheels while juggling bowling balls and apples. And the clown stops and says, to all 6-year-old students who have never told a lie, come with me to Candyland, where you can eat all the cake and candy you want without getting fat or full or sick or having to brush your teeth or worry about getting cavities. In fact, the more you eat, the healthier you'll be. So several students get up, they enter the elevator, they disappear into the sky, but what we learn later is that one of those students has told a lie, and another is not 6 but 7 years old. What happens next? That's an idea for a story, something you could write about. What would happen if you cracked open an egg and a leprechaun popped out? And the leprechaun says, follow me to the end of the rainbow and I'll give you my pot of gold. But before I can give you the gold, you're going to have to give me something in exchange, and I can't tell you what it is until we get there. That's an idea for a story, something you could write about. What would happen if you were only 1 inch tall? Well, one of my favorite writers, Shel Silverstein, answered that question. He wrote a poem called 1 Inch Tall, and it goes like this. If you were only 1 inch tall, you'd ride a worm to school. The teardrop of a crying ant would be your swimming pool. A crumb of cake would be a feast, and last you 7 days at least. A flea would be a frightening beast if you were 1 inch tall. If you were only 1 inch tall, you'd walk beneath the door, and it would take about a month to get down to the store. A bit of fluff would be your bed. You'd swing upon a spider's thread and wear a thimble on your head if you were 1 inch tall. You'd surf across the kitchen sink upon a stick of gum. You couldn't hug your mama. You just have to hug her thumb. You'd run from people's feet in fright. To move a pen would take all night. This poem took 14 years to write because I'm just 1 inch tall. Now, another thing that inspires stories is exactly what we've been talking about all along: words. Imagine a pond, a pool of water that's completely calm. Now imagine somebody takes a stone and tosses it into the center of the pond, the splash, and the rippling waves that circle out over the water, disturbing the reeds, the moss, the water lilies, and any boats floating on the surface. The boats rock back and forth as the stone sinks, frightening the fish, disturbing the algae, and then striking the bottom and displacing the mud. Well, the effect is similar when a word is tossed into your mind. It splashes into your imagination and often can cause a similar effect in an idea that will inspire a story. Now, the same thing happens with two words, and it's especially effective with unrelated words, words that don't normally go together. Now, I happen to be a big Dr. Seuss fan, and I know that at a certain point in his career, he was trying to think of an idea for his next book, and he had a list of words for beginning readers. He decided he would go down that list, find the first two words that rhymed, and then write a book with them. Well, does anybody have an idea what those two words might be? Yeah, in the back there? That is correct, The Cat in the Hat. So, one of Dr. Seuss's most famous and beloved books just came from two words that splashed into his mind. So when you sit down to write a story or draw a picture or play the piano, there's no right or wrong way to do it. There's just your way. And if you enjoy the process, especially if you love it, then you're doing it right. Now, unfortunately, we live in a society that says, you are what you do for money. I totally disagree. I say you are what you have in your heart. If you like to paint, you're a painter. If you like to play the trumpet or the trombone, you're a musician. So it makes no sense to say when I grow up, I'm going to be a writer. If you enjoy writing, and that's what you spend your free time doing, then you're a writer now. Now, I'd like to share one more book with you. Weird the Beard's always fun. It's also chance to show you that, you can choose any object, your big toe or pinky finger, a shoe or a sock. Or your characters can be people, of course. And you ask yourselves, what do these characters want more than anything in the world? And what obstacles do they face on their journey to obtain it? And then you start writing, and the adventure begins. Weird the Beard came from friendly folk. Whenever he met someone, he cracked a joke. Have you heard the one about the skunk? Weird was amusing, that was true. Weird is a funny beard, and that's how he grew. So with a joke to tell, Weird went on his way, hoping to make a new friend today. Just then it happened, Weird fell off his face and dropped on the ground in a rather strange place. There he found, in the middle of a ranch, a plastic comb standing on a branch. Weird stopped on a whisker and looked up to say, "What's happening there?" in a friendly way. "Have you heard the one about the skunk?" The comb looked at Weird as if to say, "Yeah, I've heard it." Then it hurried away. So with a joke to tell, Weird went on his way, hoping to make a new friend today. It happened again. Weird fell off his face and dropped on the ground in another strange place. There Weird found, shiny and brave, a pair of scissors in the mouth of a cave. Weird stopped on a whisker and looked in to say, "Hello, friend." Then he joked his weird way, "Have you heard the one about the skunk?" The scissors looked at Weird as if to say, "About 100 times." Then they scurried away. So with a joke to tell, Weird went on his way, hoping to make a new friend today. It happened once more. Weird fell off his face and dropped on the ground in a final strange place. There Weird found someone else to meet, an electric razor standing on A Street. Weird stopped on a whisker and looked down to say, "How do you do?" Then he joked in his way, "Have you heard the one about the skunk?" In a quick shave below the lash, Weird the Beard became Murray the Mustache. With a grin on his face, as Murray now knew, choose your friends wisely because they rub off on you. Never mind the skunk joke, it stinks. So I mentioned that it's always wonderful to read and enjoy a book, but it's even better when you learn something from it. Reading Weird the Beard, we see how important it is to choose your friends wisely because your friends have a major influence on who you are. Is it a good thing that the razor transforms Weird the Beard into Murray the Mustache? Is it bad? Well, that's for you to decide. The important thing is to understand that you want to make friends with people you admire and respect because their likes and dislikes, their habits and tastes are going to influence yours. Now, I'd like to make just a few announcements, and then if anybody has any questions, I'll be able to answer some of your questions. The first announcement is, if anybody who's bought a book, you're going to come on up here when I finish. You can kind of line up right here. I will sign the book to you, and you will leave with your book. Now, if you didn't buy a book, but you would like to read one of my stories, there's a couple options, and the first one is really wonderful. Your school library has copies of my books. You can go to your school library and read them for free. In fact, your school library not only has my books, it's full of all kinds of fantastic stories that you can read for free. Now, you're all super lucky because you also have a public library. Always remember that the library is a place you can go to invest in yourself and in your future, and it costs nothing. So take advantage of the incredible resource that is your school and public library. Now, of course, I understand that sometimes there's a particular book that is special to you for one reason or another that you would like to keep. Naturally, I have a collection of books that are dear to me. So if you would still like to buy a book, I will be here today only, right out front of the school at a table like this one. You can drag your parents over, tell them it's not candy, it's not a video game, it's a book, and you will still get the books personally autographed to you at the discount prices, just like the students who bought them before. So again, the students who bought the books already will come on up when I finish. Those of you who didn't, read them at your school library if you'd like to, or meet me today after school right out front. My next announcement is real quick for the teachers. The bookmarks I gave you have 26 inside. So if you have more than 26 students, you deserve a raise. But also I have plenty of extras up here so you can come up or send a student up, and I will give you as many as you need so that all the students get a free bookmark. Now for the students, if the bookmark is not enough for you, but you don't really want a book, but you would like something more than a bookmark, I do have stickers available. These are just $1, Silly the Seed, Weird the Beard, and Look at the Hand Turkey, and I also have Mark the Malcolm Maker stickers, and again, these are just $1 if you want something simpler like that. And then finally, often when I get to the question and answer part of my presentation, I have more questions than I have time to answer them all. So what I did is I started a video blog called Kids Ask Scott, where you can maybe win a free book. Now keep in mind this is a contest, not everybody wins the lottery, but I can give you some tips to make it more likely that you might win. First of all, you want to go online, find Kids Ask Scott. Some of you may need an older brother or sister, your mom or your dad, an aunt or an uncle to help you. You can subscribe to the channel and then post your questions in the comments below. If you don't want anybody to see your comments, my contact information is at the end and below each video, so you can reach me there as well. Now the tips are this. First of all, most of the questions I get, I have already answered. So it's a good idea to watch some of the videos, not only to get an idea of what I've already answered, but to get an idea of the types of questions I pick. Now the second tip is please tell me your first name. You can include how old you are, something fun or silly about yourself, but at least tell me your first name, because otherwise I only have a username, and as I'm sure you're well aware, most people's usernames are very strange and not pronounceable. And then finally, just be patient. I do get a lot of questions, and I only do one a week, so it's definitely not possible to answer them all. And also, sometimes I really like your question, but it just takes me some time to think of an answer. Now, if you are interested in asking me a question at Kids Ask Scott, these cards are free. So after school, you can stop by the table, pick one up, and be on your way. There's only one card. It just has two different sides, and they'll be on the table just like they are now. So did anybody have a question that they would like to ask me? You seriously don't have a question? You've had your hand up the whole time. Do you have a question? Oh, you wanted me to read one of these? Oh, I won't have time to read any more stories, unfortunately, but I'm glad that you want to hear it. Yes, right here in the green. if you have the money right now, you can come on up with the group that already has them. It's no problem. You don't need the form. I have forms of my own for that. Yes, right here, the pink. Right here, with the flowers growing out of your hair. Are the stickers what? I couldn't even hear what you said. The stickers what? No, the stickers are $1. The bookmarks are free, and the Kids Ask Scott cards are free. Yes. Am I ever going to come back? I'm very flattered that you would ask me that. I'm still here, and he's already wondering when I'm coming back. So I have different presentations for different age groups. So usually if I come back after 2 years, it's okay, because that way if you're in first grade and then you come back in third grade, normally if it's split up right, it's okay. So I certainly would be more than honored to come back. I'm happy to be here now. Thank you. Yes? So the question is, am I going to make more books? So I'm always working on something. Lately I've been working more on other middle grade novels, no relation to Shelp McStorm, but I'm kind of finishing up my 4th one and starting my 5th one. You know, when I send a book out for feedback and constructive criticism to writer friends and editors and people like that, I get started on another project. So I'm about 10 chapters into the 5th novel, and I'm going through a final edit on the 4th one. Yes, right here in the red. Can I read with my eyes closed? Let me try. Are you ready? Congratulations, today's your day. You're off to great places. You're off and away. You have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes, and you can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're on your own, and you know what you know, and you are the guy who'll decide where to go. How did I do that? Of course, I cannot read with my eyes closed, but if I have something memorized, then I can, right? Yes? Do the books cost money? I have an eye-opening piece of information for you. Everything costs money. Yes. So the books do cost money. The hardcovers are $15. They are discounted while I'm here. There's no shipping and handling, no envelope, no bubble wrap. So it's really, I don't know what the tax rate in this city is, but it's essentially $13 and let's say 65 cents plus tax, which comes out to $15 even. And then the novel is $10, and again, that includes tax. It's really like $9.28 plus tax, something like that. So, yes, right here? Yeah. What about it? Is it a comedy book? Comic? Does this? Oh, you mean like a graphic novel type of thing? No, these are picture books. Yeah, they're all picture books. It's mostly what I write is picture books and middle grade fiction. How about right here? Yeah. Have I ever written a chapter book? Now, technically speaking, a chapter book is a book with more pictures and less words, so kind of like Captain Underpants, okay? So this would be called a novel. Now, maybe by your definition, it is a chapter book because there are chapters, but there's less pictures and a lot more words. So it is a chapter book, but it's more technically a middle grade novel. Right here in the purple shirt, yeah. These books will not be in the book fair. The book fair is all scholastic. So they'll be in your library, though. Yes. Yeah. Oops. What? What is my favorite color? So, you know, I like really all colors for different reasons. But I suppose if I had to pick one, I might pick blue because the sky is blue and the ocean should be blue. And those are two elements that I find myself at home in. So I'm going to ask a question way in the back. So you're going to want to listen to your classmate's question. Right there in the back with a gray jacket. Make it loud. Can somebody relay that question? Do I write books with pictures? With no pictures. So, you know, Shelp McStorm wouldn't really need pictures. The novels that I'm working on now may or may not have pictures. That would depend on the editor's discretion. So I personally prefer books with pictures. You know, I'll read whatever, but so it's a hard question to answer. Well, it just depends if the editor that decides to publish the book wants or doesn't want or sees a need for or not pictures. Yes, right here. So out of all the books I've written, which one is my favorite? Well, it's kind of like asking a parent which of their children they love the most. Parents love all of their children equally, but just for different reasons. And likewise, I like all of my books equally, but for different reasons. Silly the Seed was my first book. Weird the Beard is the only book in the history of world literature whose main character is a beard. Shelpa McStorm was my first novel. Fred and the Monster won an award. Mark and the Molecule Maker was the first book with which I collaborated with an illustrator, and it was very exciting for me to see my story come to life through another person's imagination. So they're all special to me, but just for different reasons. How about here in the red? In the red? No problem in the black? So, you just asked the magic question. Can I sign the bookmarks? It's never a good public announcement, but I'm going to make it. I can sign the bookmarks, but I have to say this. It's always better when you ask me not in front of all these people, but that's okay. If there's people out front that want to buy a book and want to get back in their car and be on their way, those are the people I'm going to help first. So if you want to wait around until I'm not busy anymore, I have no problem staying and signing your bookmark. Just so you know. But sometimes, most of the time you guys are great and you're polite and you're patient, but then there's some times where I've got all these bookmarks coming from every direction, above and below and behind. And just make sure that you form a single line and understand that I'm going to help the people that want the books first, and then I'll sign any bookmarks for people that want to wait around to have them signed. I have time just to answer one or two more questions. So I'm going to try to call on people. How about right here? Yeah, black shirt. Am I rich is the question. As a matter of fact, I am one of the richest people in the world. I have a wife who loves me and who I adore right back. I'm very lucky to not only have both my parents still living, but also still healthy, still married. I have an older brother or sister. We're all the best of friends. I've traveled to many places in the world. So I am rich with experience, but you won't find too many writers outside of Stephen King and J.K. Rowling who are rich from making books. Just going to be my last question right here with the unicorn. So I am definitely going to sign your book. So that's the point that I made about if you ordered a book, you're going to come on up, not only to get your book, but to see it signed with your name in it. Now remember, today I will be out front of the school. You don't have to buy a book, just come on by and say hello. If you did buy a book, now would be the time to come on up. If you didn't buy a book, you're going to follow your teacher's instructions for the rest of your lives. Yeah, thank you very much. I hope to see you guys again. Thank you. What's your name? Jacob? Jacob Sparks. Okay.
cameraman, but
No, I had it on my dash as I was driving over, like, incredible. It's funny, on YouTube it looks so much bigger.
So, not long ago, I was on safari in the jungles of Africa when a tribe of cannibal pygmy warriors ambushed me. They wrapped my arms and legs with vines and tied me to a tree and were aiming their arrows at me when a lion leaped out of the wilderness, snarling and gnashing its teeth. The pygmies went wild, running for their lives, and left me there stranded with the hungry carnivore. The sun was scorching, must have been 110 degrees at least, and I was bathed with sweat and shaken so hard my knees were knocking together. Well, as the lion crept towards me, I managed to wiggle an arm free, and just as the beast attacked, I pulled this pen out of my pocket and poked its tip into the lion's eye. Temporarily blinded, the lion roared in agony as I untangled the vines and escaped. Of course, that story isn't true, nor are any of the stories in my books. Human beings have been inventing stories since before history began, not only to entertain ourselves, but also in an attempt to better understand our world and our place in it. My name is Scott Sussman. I'm the author of these books you see up here. I'm also the author and illustrator of Silly the Seed, Weird the Beard, and Lurky the Hand Turkey. I'm here today to talk to you about why I love reading and writing, and to explain some habits of mine that have led to many of my successes and that can help you achieve success in your life as well. Now, I'm often asked what it's like being an author, to which I respond, heaven on earth. But that's because reading and writing has been my bliss, my passion, the thing that I love to do for as long as I can remember. But being an author, writing books, is irrelevant. In fact, the question should be, what's it like making a living doing what you love to do? Because that's the blessing. Whether you're interested in math, science, sports, cars, computers, whatever you love to do, if you can make a living at it, welcome to paradise. Now, I'm also often asked if I think students should be rewarded for reading, which to me is a bizarre question, because reading is the reward. After all, in today's society, it is difficult, if not impossible, to survive without a relatively high level of reading and writing skills. And the better you are at reading and writing, the better jobs you will get and the more options you will have in life. Words are powerful tools. They express our thoughts, sharpen our intellect, and sculpt who we are. Words can start wars. They can also start friendships. Words can make you cry. They can also make you laugh. Words can make you think differently, and thinking differently will give you an advantage in any situation. Now, for some of you, this might sound like bad news because you hate reading. Am I right? Anybody think reading's a little boring? Quite a few hands, several. Well, for those of you who raised your hands, and those of you who didn't but wanted to, I happen to believe that you actually enjoy reading, but you're just mistaken about the concept of what reading is about. I believe that you associate reading with the things your teachers obligate you to read at school and write book reports about, so it's not something that you do by choice, but because you feel forced. Now, if you're like me, I enjoyed reading the things my teachers encouraged me to read at school. Not everybody does. I did. But my point is that it's important to recognize the 360-degree perspective of what reading is about. Reading is not just scholastic, something we do at school. Anybody here like reading comic books? Fantastic, that's reading. Who reads magazines? Excellent, that's reading too. Do you like sports? Are you an athlete? Reading the sports page of the newspaper and biographies about your favorite athletes is reading. So do not psychologically box yourselves in for life regarding the concept of what reading is about. Always remember, the key to enjoying reading means reading whatever you're interested in. Now, as much as I'd like to encourage you all to strengthen and develop your reading and writing skills, I would like to expand my message to include using reading and writing to being more successful at whatever you choose to do. David Toma, former New York police officer and inspirational speaker, said, "The greatest thing we can achieve in our life is to discover our purpose and then to spend our life fulfilling it." Whether you enjoy fixing cars, fighting fires, programming computers, playing the piano, teaching, whatever you love to do, if you can make a living at it, you won't have to work a day in your life. Oh, you'll work, but it won't feel like work because you'll be having fun. Now, when I was about your guys' age, I wanted to be an astronaut when I grew up, which in my mind at the time involved incredible adventures discovering new worlds. But then I read some books about being an astronaut and learned that there's nothing out there but stardust and empty space. So I changed my mind. But looking back now, I realize that my reasons for wanting to be an astronaut are similar to being a writer, especially of children's books. After all, in math and science, which is what being an astronaut involves a lot of, In math and science, 1 plus 1 equals 2. Any other answer is wrong. But in writing and art in general, 1 plus 1 can equal anything you want. A bolt of lightning from a clear blue sky. An alien from another planet made of sugar-free bubblegum and helium-filled balloons. Such inspiration was the fuel that caused the shining adventure of the Shelf McStorm, which takes place on that fantastic world where anything can happen and does. Now, when I was about 20 years old, I had a dream that I was going to prison for a long time. It was just a dream, but in the dream, I was walking down a dark, narrow corridor towards a cell with thick iron bars, suffering a deep sense of despair. But then it occurred to me that I could have books to read and a pencil and paper to write with while I was behind bars. And suddenly, I felt free. I was no longer being punished, but rewarded. And when I woke up, I realized that stories in my imagination would always be my refuge. Books would offer me peace of mind, no matter how hard life became, no matter how bad the world could be. Ever since that dream, I've recognized, excuse me, reading and writing as the island paradise in the middle of a raging sea. Now, that dream also inspired the message of Lurkey the Hand Turkey, which is to see the positive side of every situation because it's always there, and to know that if you do your best, whatever happens will be for the best. Which leads me to the habits I mentioned. There are 6 of them. And again, they are the habits that have led to many of my successes. I call them the keys to succeed. One of those successes is having the opportunity to do what I love to do for a living, which is writing and publishing books. The first key is believe in yourself. The more successful you are in life, the more obstacles you will face on your journey to get where you are going. You will be tried, tested, doubted, discouraged, sometimes even by your own family and friends. To be the best, you have to fight the hardest battles, and you won't succeed if you lose faith in yourself and give up. Never give up. Once you give up, the dream is dead. But as long as you believe in yourself and work hard to succeed, there's a chance you will. Succeed at what, you may be wondering? A man named Wayne White answered that question. He said, do what you love, because it is going to lead to where you want to go. The second key is time management. Learn to manage your time wisely. My wife used to work for a company that was the largest company of its kind in the world. And then another company bought part of her company, the part in which she worked. During her first week at the new company, an employee explained that the workload at the new company was colossal, so heavy that employees sometimes worked until 10 and even 11 o'clock at night. Well, my wife raised her hand and reminded everybody in the room that she and the other employees from the previous company had worked for the largest company in the world, and that they had had just as much work to do as anyone else in the industry. So if employees at the new company were working until 10 and 11 o'clock at night, they weren't managing their time well. Well, over the next several months, as my wife's new bosses and coworkers saw her achieve outstanding results within the standard 8-hour workday, they witnessed effective time management in action. Manage your workload wisely, and you will complete twice the work in half the time. Believe in yourself, manage your time wisely. The third key is prioritize. Often you're faced with 1,000 things to do. Study for a math test, finish your history homework, do the dishes, take out the trash, and then the universe dumps another 1,000 things into your already hectic schedule, leaving you overwhelmed and exacerbated. When I was in college, I worked as a waiter. Waiting tables is a stressful job, more than you might imagine. There's a time of day and evening that food service describe as being slammed or in the weeds, when there's a rush of guests and waiters and waitresses have 6, 7, 8 or more tables, and one table wants to catch up, another would like to order their drinks, the third wants to order their food, a fourth is waiting for their food, a fifth table would like to see the dessert platter, a sixth table wants their check, a seventh is waiting for change from their check, an eighth table has just been seated, and you need to greet the guests. So you have to plan the most efficient way to satisfy everybody's needs in the shortest period of time. You'll drop off the drinks, deliver the food, greet the new guests, print up the check, make change, and then the fussy gentleman at table 42 waves you over and drops an atomic bomb on your plans by asking for a bottle of Tabasco sauce, which is all the way in the back of the kitchen in a room that requires a key that you have to get from the manager, and who knows where she is right now. So now your entire plan of attack has to be reorganized in a split second. Having a comprehensive perspective of everything you need to do, and organizing those obligations from highest to lowest priority is another habit that leads to success. Believe in yourself, manage your time wisely, prioritize. The fourth key is to set long and short-term goals for yourself and achieve them. Beginning with long-term goals, you have to visualize your dream before the dream can become a reality. In the words of Walt Disney, if you can dream it, you can do it. Disney knew that visualization makes the dream more real, more authentic, more attainable. So dream big. Go as high as you can go. In the words of W. Clement Stone, aim for the moon. If you miss, you may hit a star. Say your long-term goal is to become President of the United States. Well, you've got to break down that long-term goal into smaller, easier to achieve steps. In other words, break down your long-term goal into short-term goals. When you eat a pizza, you don't cram the whole pizza in your mouth and swallow, right? Of course not. You choke to death. So you cut the pizza into slices. Then you make it even smaller by picking up a slice and taking a bite. Then with your teeth, you grind that bite into bits small enough to swallow without choking. In the words of St. Francis of Assisi, start by doing what's necessary, then what's possible, and suddenly you are doing the impossible. The road to becoming president is a mile long, and you can't walk a mile with just one step, but you can with a lot of little steps. Go to school, get good grades, graduate, go to college, major in political science, law, or perhaps business, read books about politics and biographies about former presidents, run for mayor of a city, become governor of your state, or senator, or congressman. When mountain climbers climb the world's tallest mountains, they get so exhausted that the idea of reaching the summit seems impossible. So they pick a landmark, a tree, a ridge, a rock, something 30 or 40 feet up the slope, and they climb to that much more reachable goal. Then they pick another landmark, and they slog another 30 or 40 feet up the slope. And they keep telling themselves, just make it to that tree, that ridge, that rock, and eventually, finally, they reach the top. In the words of the Chinese mystic and philosopher Lao Tzu, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. Believe in yourself, manage your time wisely, prioritize, set long and short-term goals for yourself, and achieve them. The fifth key is learn to listen and follow directions. You would be surprised, amazed even, at how often people make mistakes or fail simply because they don't listen and they don't follow directions. I used to teach high school English, and one year for my final exam, I wrote on the board in big, bold letters, "Follow the directions." Before handing out the tests, I said to the students, listen, despite how much you did or did not study, you will ace this exam if you follow the directions. The directions at the top of the test said, do not mark any answers until after you have read every question. Only after reading question 50, go back to the beginning and start marking your answers. It was a beautiful June day in Southern California. The sun was shining, a spring breeze was blowing through the room, the students were silent for 45 minutes, and then the first student reached the last question. I can't believe it, he said, causing everybody to look up, confused and surprised that somebody would interrupt the quiet atmosphere of a final exam. A few minutes later, another student. Oh, man, she said. Again, bewildered expressions, darting eyes, and then 3 more students, and then 5. The last question on the test said, if you are reading this and you haven't marked any answers, write your name at the top of your test and hand it to me blank for an A+. So had you listened, had you followed directions, you would have written your name at the top of your final exam for English, handed it to me without having answered a single question, and you would have received 100%. How many students listened? How many followed directions? 0, not 1. Now, of course, the students wanted to know why I had done what I had done, and I explained. When you finish school and go on to get a job, it will not matter so much who wrote which poem or what the definition of whimsical was. But what will matter is how good you are at listening and following directions. Believe in yourself, manage your time wisely, prioritize, set long and short-term goals for yourself and achieve them. Learn to listen and follow directions. The 6th and final key is have a positive attitude. I'm sure you've all heard somebody say, if life gives you lemons, make lemonade. A negative attitude leaves you with sour lemons, but a positive attitude transforms those lemons into sweet, refreshing lemonade. Imagine you're a boss, and you ask employee number 1 to wash the windows. Employee number 1 frowns and says, "I'm sorry, boss, that's not my job. Get the custodian to do it." So you go to employee number 2. You ask the same question. Employee number 2 says, "Absolutely, right away. When I finish, those windows will be so clean, you won't even know they're there." When the time comes to promote someone, and you have to choose between employee number 1 and employee number 2, who are you going to promote? Clearly, a positive attitude is a win-win approach to any situation. Believe in yourself, manage your time wisely, prioritize, set long and short-term goals for yourself and achieve them, learn to listen and follow directions, and have a positive attitude. With those 6 keys on your keychain, you can open any door. The keys work for me. They open many of the doors that have led to many of my successes, one of which having the opportunity to do what I love to do for a living, which is writing and publishing books, one of which I would like to share with you now. The Shining Adventures of Shilpa McStorm is my first novel. It's often described as an everybody book like Alice's Adventures of Wonderland or The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, because the story takes place on a fantastic world where anything can happen and does. Shilpa McStorm is the first main character. He resembles a human being, but is from a planet called Shine, whose inhabitants glow when happy or excited. Smiley Ray is the other main character. She's from Pix, a garden paradise inhabited by flowers. Smiley Ray is a red rose, though unlike earth flowers, she can walk and talk. Shilpa and Smiley are on vacation with their parents on a planet called Panacea. Panacea has only one rule: stay on the beach. The forest is forbidden and extremely dangerous without an expert survival guide. When Shilpa and Smiley's parents leave to attend a brief orientation meeting, they ask Shilpa to keep an eye on Smiley. Despite the warnings and Shilpa's attempts to enforce the fact that he's in charge, Smiley runs off into the forest. Shilpa goes after her, of course, and soon finds himself in this situation. Swinging his arms, Shilpa continued down the path. His feet sank in and then bounced back as though he were walking on a sponge. The air felt warmer and smelled of cinnamon. He saw an occasional petal and what seemed to be root prints, but he could not be sure they were Smiley's. Soon, he heard someone singing in a whining, throaty voice. The sound grew louder until, after rounding a bend, he saw a sombrero standing at the side of the path, sticking out its thumb. "Hey, buddy, got room for a hitchhiker? I don't bother nobody. Just sit on your head and keep quiet. I don't mean to say I ignore you or nothing, just that I can be a bit of a chatterbox." Shilpa hesitated. He was in a hurry, but then again, maybe the hat could help. After all, 4 eyes were better than 2. Nodding, he said, "Okay, sure." The sombrero slapped itself on the brim and said, "Fantastic." Shilpa picked up the hat and placed it on his head. Its brim covered his eyes, so the sombrero tipped back and forth like a ringing bell, tightening itself to fit. Finally comfortable, the hat leaned forward and examined him. "You seem to be a nice fella. By the way, where are you headed?" "I'm looking for someone," Shilpa said, continuing down the trail. "Have you seen a red flower?" "A red one? All I know is the last time I was looking for a flower, I ended up in the middle of no man's land. There was this 2-headed giant sleeping in a cave, and as I entered, suddenly the heads woke up. I tried to run, but one of its hands caught me before I could escape. The hands tugged me back and forth, fighting for who would wear me. As they screamed and spit, one said it found me first, while the other shouted, 'So what? I saw him second, and 2 is bigger than 1. As the hat rambled on, Shilpa only half listened, concentrating on where he was going. In time, he started to feel tired, and the hat began to weigh on his head. He noticed a bush with sparkling leaves and remembered having passed one like it. "Haven't we been through here already?" "Here? No, sir." "Are you sure? I've seen that bush." "That bush is one of hundreds. Keep your eyes open. You'll see many more." Shilpa's mouth scrunched to the side. He considered ditching the hat, but decided to wait. "Please let me know if you see any red flowers or red petals even." "Will do. But let me finish my story about the 2-headed giant. Finally, while the heads were fighting about how many fingers it takes to make a fist, I fell to the floor and snuck away. Ever since, I always refused to ride with anybody who has more than 1 head. That's why when I saw you, I said to myself, 'Now here comes somebody that looks like a good kid and only 1 head.'" Shilpa's legs felt rubbery. He was breathing harder than he should have been. The hat continued to blab as if any thought that came into its mind was worth sharing. After a while, Shelpa noticed the bush with sparkling leaves again. This time he also noticed a clump of rust-colored weeds he had seen before. When he recognized a heart-shaped rock he was about to step over, he said, "Well, I'm sure something's wrong. We've passed this place twice already." The sombrero said nothing. "Did you hear me? I said we've passed this place already, 2 times at least." You think so?" Shelpa stopped in his tracks, feeling weaker than ever. "Yes, I'm sure of it." "Well, where'd you say you was going?" "I didn't. I said I was looking for a friend, and you're supposed to be helping." "I'm on the lookout. You can count on me." "But we're going in circles." "So? What's wrong with circles?" Shelpa yanked the hat off his head. Holding it firmly, he jabbed a finger into its brim. "Hey, what's going on here?" The hat struggled to free itself from Shelpa's vice-like grip. "Circles are safe. They lead you back to the same place every time, so you never get lost." "I knew it. Where are we?" "Right back where we began. See the trunk of that tree?" The sombrero pointed with its thumb. "I carved my initials into it while I was waiting for a ride." "Now what?" Shelpa set down the hat, which by now weighed as much as a pile of bricks, and trudged over to the tree to finger the grooves. "Maybe I should go back." "Oh, you can't go back, not more than a few steps anyway. Forward's the only way through the forest. Haven't you noticed?" "But if we keep going in circles, we'll never get anywhere." "Exactly. Going is the important thing, not the getting there." "What if I squeeze through those trees and head into the forest?" "You can do that, I suppose, but heed my advice. You don't want to go in there. Trust me, stick to the trail. Come on, let's go. I'll tell you a story about a beard I met that made friends by cracking jokes." "Not a chance," Shelpa said. "You're wasting my time." "Nothing of the kind. I'm just trying to help. If you want to help, wish me luck." The sombrero stared at Shelpa while wagging its brim. "Luck? You're going to need more than that." Now, an interesting story about this book is when I started writing it, at the early stages of the writing process, there were 2 characters in this book that, as the story developed, I realized didn't belong in this book. They had stories of their own. So I was much younger at the time and had only recently discovered the mystery of the number 3. What I'm referring to is that our mind tends to conceive of certain concepts in 3s. For example, time can be divided into past, present, and future. Water has 3 states: solid, liquid, gas. Most living things exist as man, woman, or child. So I decided to try to think of a 3rd character to round off the other 2, and I was eating sunflower seeds at the time, and I figured a seed would be an interesting character, and from there the story practically wrote itself. Of course, I'm referring to Silly the Seed, and coincidentally the other 2 characters were Weird the Beard and Lurkey the Hand Turkey. So here I was writing about Shelpa McStorm when 2 other characters bubbled up to the surface of my imagination and demanded my attention. So I put Shelpa McStorm aside and wrote what would become my first 3 books: Silly the Seed, Weird the Beard, and Lurkey the Hand Turkey. So sometimes you sit down to write a poem and it turns into a short story. Sometimes you sit down to write a short story and it turns into an essay. In 1981, a housewife named Isabel Allende sat down to write a letter to her grandfather, and that letter ended up becoming her first book, The House of the Spirits, which became a bestseller and has since been translated into 40 languages. So when writing or doing any artistic activity, let your mind wander. Let your imagination go wherever it wants without trying to guide or control it too much. Freedom of the imagination is critical to creativity. It's kind of like taking your dog for a walk to the park. On the way to the park, your dog's on a leash under your control. Your dog can't go any further than the leash will allow. But then you get to the park, you take off the leash, and your dog goes crazy, chasing butterflies and shadows, zipping over weeds and grass, zooming between bushes and trees, barking at the leaves, at the wind, at the sky. When writing, unleash your imagination like a dog in the park. And always remember, any idea you have is a good idea. Now, you may have to develop and explore your idea further. You may have to twist your idea into a pretzel or untie its knots. Your idea may lead to other ideas no longer related to your original idea. But if you have an idea, even just the seed of an idea, and you water it and give it sunlight, you're likely to end up with a beautiful flower. Now, many successful people take an ordinary idea and make it extraordinary by exploring and developing the idea to its fullest potential. They go as deep as they can go, looking around every corner, inside every crack in the pavement, under every leaf, until they end up with a fresh, new, innovative idea. Now, sure, some ideas lead to dead ends, but even a dead end ends somewhere, and that somewhere even a brick wall can give you bricks of ideas that you can use in other projects. So trust your instincts, believe in your ideas, and maybe most importantly, believe in yourselves. Now I'd like to make a few announcements, and then I'll have time to answer some questions if anybody has any questions. The first announcement is, if anybody has bought a book, you will come up here when I finish. You can just line up right here. I will sign the book to you and you will leave with your book. If you didn't order a book and you would like to read one of my stories, there's a couple options, and the first one is really wonderful. Your school library has copies of my books. You can go to your school library and read them for free. In fact, your school library not only has my books, it's full of all kinds of fantastic stories that you can read for free. Now, you're all super lucky because you also have a public library. Always remember that the library is a place you can go to invest in yourself and in your future, and it costs nothing. So take advantage of the incredible resource that is your school and public library. Now, of course, I understand that sometimes there's a particular book that is special to you for one reason or another that you would like to keep. Naturally, I have a collection of books that are dear to me. So if you would still like to buy a book, I will be here today only in the front of the school at a table like this one. You can drag your parents over, tell them it's not candy, it's not a video game, it's a book, and you will still get the books personally autographed to you at the discount prices, just like the students who bought them before. So again, if you bought a book, you'll come on up when I finish. If you didn't buy a book, read them at your school library, or meet me today after school in front of the school, in front of the office. Quick announcement to the teachers. The bookmarks I gave you have 26 inside. So if you have more than 26 students, you deserve a raise. But also I have plenty of extras up here, so you can come up or send a student up, and I will give you as many as you need so that all the students get a free bookmark. Now for the students, if you want something more than the bookmark, but you don't really want a book, but something to remember the day, I do have stickers for $1. They're Silly the Seed, Weird the Beard, and Lurky the Hand Turkey, and I also have Mark the Molecule Maker stickers. And again, these are just $1 if you want something simpler like this. And then my last announcement is that often when I get to the question and answer part of my presentation, I have more questions than I have time to answer them all. So I started a video blog called Kids Ask Scott, where you can maybe win a free book. Now keep in mind, this is a contest. Not everybody wins the lottery, but I can give you some tips that might make it more likely for you to win. Now first of all, you want to go online, find Kids Ask Scott, subscribe to the channel, and then you can post your questions in the comments below. If you don't want other people to see your questions, my contact information is at the end and below each video, so you can reach me that way as well. Now the tips are this. First of all, most of the questions I get, I have already answered. So it's a good idea to watch some of the videos, not only to get an idea of what I've already answered, but to get an idea of the types of questions that I like to pick. The second tip is tell me your first name. I often get questions with no name, and as you can imagine, people's usernames are very strange and not pronounceable. You can include how old you are or something fun or silly about yourself, but minimum, at least tell me your first name. And then finally, just be patient. I do get a lot of questions, and I only answer one a week, so I'm not able to answer all of them. And then sometimes I do like your question a lot, but maybe I have other questions already lined up for a few weeks or a few months. And also, it takes me time to think of an answer that I like for your question. So if you are interested in asking me a question, these cards are free. You can pick them up after school. They'll be right on the table like they are now. You can come on by, grab one, and be on your way, no problem. And there's only one. It's just got two different sides. So does anybody have a question that they wanted to ask me? Right here? Are you an illustrator of your book, too? Am I an illustrator of the book? I illustrated these three, and this one was illustrated by a guy named Noel Toison, and those four were illustrated by Eve Margarita. Yes? What is it? Hold on, I can't hear. What is it? A sticker, you mean? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you want a sticker now, you can come up and get in the line also if you didn't get a book. And if you brought money for a book, but you don't have that slip, you can come up too. That's fine. If anybody wants a book or a sticker, you can come on up when I finish. Yes? So how much are the books? The hardcover picture books are $15. That includes tax. So it's really like $13.70 plus tax or something like that. And the novel I read from is $10, and that's total, including tax. Any other questions? Okay, so, oh, yes, in the red. Am I a fan of sports? So I played a lot of sports when I was younger, and I don't play. I do go to the gym. I don't play a lot of sports now, but if I would prefer to play than to watch. So when I watch sports, if I don't know anybody on the team, like a friend of mine or somebody's dad, I don't care who wins. It doesn't matter to me. You know, people, my father-in-law, my wife is Italian. She's born and raised in Rome. And I'm sure most of you are aware that in Europe, soccer is, there's one sport, soccer. And the second sport is soccer. The third sport, soccer. That's all everybody cares about. And my father-in-law, if his team is called Roma, Rome has two teams, Lazio and Roma. He's Roma. If Rome loses, his whole weekend's ruined. The weekend is ruined. So it's just, I can't understand that. The team, I have no control if the team wins or loses. Why should that ruin my weekend? You know? So I do like sports, though, and I do admire, you know, like the athletes, and especially the best of the best. You know, I'm the kind of like Michael Jordan generation. He was amazing. And I kind of fit into when the Lakers in the 80s had Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So, you know, I used to watch some of those games and enjoy it a lot. And when the World Cup is going on, I like to watch the World Cup, especially if the United States or Italy's involved. Yes? Yeah. What inspired me to write books? So, you know, there's a lot of things, but the one inspiration that I like to mention is when I was younger than you guys, there were days that I was at school, and, you know, sometimes I didn't want to be there. I'd prefer to be playing at the park or at the beach. And then there are times that your parents drag you to the bank or the post office or the supermarket, and, you know, you don't want to be there. But what I learned when I was that much younger was that there will always be times throughout my life that I have to be somewhere physically, but mentally, I'm as free as can be. Now, many of you are looking right at me, and it seems like you're listening to every word I'm saying, but you might not be here at all. You may be on some tropical island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean or skiing down Mount Everest surrounded by blue sky and snow. Well, that freedom of the imagination is something that nobody can ever take away from you. And it's the main reason why I never get bored and why I never got in trouble at school, because I always knew that I could go wherever I wanted and be wherever I wanted right here in my head. Yes? Why did I choose reading and writing over everything else? You know, I never really chose it. It's just something that I always loved to do. A similar question that I'm often asked is, why did I want to be a writer? I never wanted to be a writer. I just one day realized I was one. So, and you know, the whole point of my presentation for you guys was exactly. So if you follow that advice, you're guaranteed to, no. So anyway, I'm saying I never really made the choice. And the point of my presentation is that not everybody's going to like the same thing. When I said, raise your hand if you think reading's boring, you know, that thought of that question came to me because a very good friend of mine who works for Disney, we've been friends since preschool, and he one time said that he hated reading. And I thought about that, and I realized that you don't hate reading at all. You just don't like to read what I like to read. I like to read poetry and classic literature. He reads constantly for his job. He's always online reading articles about things that relate to his interests. So it's ridiculous to think that we're all supposed to want to, you know, everybody wants to be a movie star, or everybody wants to, you know, loves to read, or something like that. The key is finding that one thing. And some of you might have 2 or 3 things that you find that you love to do, but at least one that you love to do. And you don't even have to make a living at it. It could just be something that's a part of your life that you know always brings you joy. I think we have time for 2 or 3 more questions, yeah?
What's your favorite book that you wrote?
So which of the books I've written is my favorite? It's kind of like asking a parent which of their children they love the most. Parents love all of their children equally, but just maybe for different reasons. And likewise, I like all my books equally, but for different reasons. Silly the Seed was my first book. Weird the Beard is the only book in the history of world literature whose main character is a beard. Shelf McStorm is my first novel. Fred and the Monster won an award. Mark and the Molecule Maker is the first book with which I collaborated with an illustrator, and it was very exciting for me to see my story come to life through another person's imagination. So they're all kind of my favorites, but just for different reasons. Yes? Do I like tackle football? If you mean playing it?
No, just like watching it too.
So first of all, playing it, I don't like any sport where my bones are at risk of being broken. I also don't like any sport. So I remember when I was like 8 or 9 years old, I was on a soccer team, and we were going to practice on the field, and there was an American football, I say American football, anyway, a football team, on the other side of the field. And the young kids, and they were lined up in 2 lines facing each other, 2 parallel lines. And the coach would call 2 numbers, and the kids, they had helmets on. One person from each line had to run forward and smash their head into the person across from them. I just really didn't see myself signing up for that. So tackle football, no. Do I like watching it? Again, if I'm at a friend's house and they're watching a game, I have no problem sitting down and watching it, and I can even enjoy it. Who do I want to win? Probably just whoever my friend wants to win. So they'll be in a better mood after the game's over. But I would always prefer to sit down with a book or my pen and piece of paper, mostly my computer, I should say, and get some writing done or some reading. I like to play the harmonica. I live near the beach, so I like taking walks on the beach. Those are my favorite things to do, really. I'm not against watching sports or anything. So just one more question. Yeah, right here. Okay, so I like playing the harmonica. I like walking on the beach. I'll walk anywhere. I mean, because I live near the beach. So I have friends that like going hiking, so sometimes I'll go on a hike as well. And then just spending quality time with my wife. And, you know, that usually involves taking a walk somewhere or maybe going out for lunch or dinner or going to explore some other part of the city. So I want to remind you, again, I will be here today after school, right out front. You don't have to buy a book. Just stop by and say hello. If you did buy a book, now would be the time to come on up. If you didn't buy a book, you're going to follow your teacher's instructions for the rest of your lives. Yeah, thank you very much. I hope to see you guys again. You were fantastic. Thank you. Fortnite. I get that question a lot. I don't know what...